Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name's Kaylee.
And my name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case, please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
Did you ever wake up one day and think, maybe, just maybe, today's the day I die? Of course you don't, because why would you do that, right? Well, unfortunately for one Irish man, his last day was very unexpected and very cruel. Or was it? Today we will be discussing the death of Jason Corbett.
So, Jason Corbett was born on February 12, 1976. He originated from Pallaskenry, which is a county in Limerick, Ireland, and he was one out of 8 children. He had a twin brother named Wayne. Jason was described as being kind-hearted, outgoing, charismatic, and he had a voice so loud you knew when he was around. And his sister says, quote, "I never thought he was romantic growing up until he met Max." So his first wife was Margaret, and she went by Max Fitzpatrick, and Jason were introduced by her best friend Lynn one night while out at a bar. And they married shortly after meeting, having Jack and Sarah not long after that. And then in November 2006, a few months after Sarah was born, unfortunately, Max suffered complications from an asthma attack. Mag's sister, Catherine, who was present at the time, did witness her sister urgently using her inhaler, and afterwards, Jason rushed Mags off to the University Hospital of Limerick, and unfortunately, she did not make it, so Jason became a widow at the age of 30 years old.
Which is super young to be a widow.
Yeah, that's really young.
Yeah. 2007, which was obviously a little over, maybe under a year after Max died, Jason decided to sign up for an au pair. Um, and basically, if you don't know what an au pair is, it's basically a person working and living as part of a host family. They typically take on the share of the responsibility of child work, or child care, child care, as well as housework. Um, the first au pair that Jason had, the girl was Czech, but it did not work out. Then the second girl was Spanish and also did not work out. And the reasons for those not working out was because of the language barrier and the fact that both girls did not tend on sticking around for a long time. So it caused the au pair not to work. So Jason decided he needed somebody that was English, that spoke English, that they could talk, because he didn't speak any other languages. So April 2008, Jason hires Molly Martens from Knoxville, Tennessee to work as an au pair for the family. Family? For the family. Um Unfortunately, unknown to Jason at the time, Molly Martens was to be honest, kind of a questionable person. She had claimed that she graduated from Clemson University, but the reality is she dropped out. She also claims to be vetted and approved to be a foster parent, which is not true, and told friends that she knew Mags, and that's how they met before Mags, quote unquote, died of cancer, which we all know she didn't die of cancer, she died of an asthma attack. She was also recently released from the psych ward, and also had a boyfriend, Keith, that she told that she wouldn't be there long term, but she ended up being long term there. And also had issues with Jason's friends for absolutely no fucking reason. But Molly Martens described her first day landing in Ireland as an au pair as, she says, "I arrived on a traditional rainy day in Ireland. I met Jason and he immediately put me at ease. He was charming, funny, and he made me feel very special." Now, Tracy Corbett, which is Jason's sister, said that Jason and Molly got close immediately, the line between a friendship and a romance blurring very quickly. During this time, Molly was actually sent back home to visit family, And her and Jason exchanged via email for that time, and Jason expressed that he wanted to slow down the relationship and asked Molly to move out when she returned from her visit. That didn't happen though. Jason ended up selling the house per Molly's request, and in 2010 proposed to Molly. April 2011, the entire family moved to Walburg, North Carolina, which is 10 miles from Winston-Salem. And weeks after they moved there, Jason and Molly actually got married.
So, in their next several years of marriage, Molly worked part time as a swim instructor, and Jason worked as a manager at a packaging plant. So, Jason's kids, Sarah and Jack, started calling Molly Mom. Molly wanted to adopt the kids. Jason had agreed to this initially. However, he instead applied for green cards while they retained their Irish passports. And according to Tracy, Jason had told her that him and the kids planned on returning to Ireland someday. Jason had also processed the children's legal resident status through his job rather than through the Martens family. And this obviously caused some friction in Jason and Molly's marriage. Summer 2013, Molly consults an attorney for legal advice on her custody rights regarding the kids in the event of a divorce. She also did speak with an attorney late in 2014 about her rights to the children. And some weird things did begin to surface around this time. For example, Molly lied to their neighbors about being that Sarah was her biological daughter, even went into length how difficult the labor was. And Molly told Jack and Sarah that Jason had killed their mom and lied to Jason about being bipolar, self-harming, and drinking margaritas throughout the day before going to the children's appointments. So these are definitely some big red flags.
Yep.
And Molly even once held Jack under a running kitchen faucet as punishment for splashing her with water and not calling her mom. Molly was also angry for several days when Jack reminded her that she was not his mother.
Which is crazy, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
Yep. According to Molly, though, Jason was no ray of sunshine either, and she even has some proof to this because she had secretly hidden recording devices in their house. And on some of them, which you can find them on the first 48, you can hear Jason getting angry about Molly not wanting to talk to him or doing something wrong several times. Molly also claims, I can't talk today, fuck me. Molly also claims that Jason was violent towards her and that she was scared for her life. Something that somewhat corroborates this is that in a doctor's note, Jason describes himself as being angry for no reason. August 2nd, 2015, 911 receives a call from Tom Martens, Molly's father, and Tom says to them, I intervened in a fight between Molly and Jason at their home. He's bleeding all over. I may have killed him. I hit him with a baseball bat. Police find Jason unresponsive when they arrive on scene. Tom tells authorities that he found Jason strangling Molly and refusing to let go of her, which would coincide with him being abusive like her previous claims. And this led to them responding in self-defense. Unfortunately for Jack and Sarah and the rest of Jason's family, Jason would later succumb to his injuries, leaving Jack and Sarah fatherless. A few hours later, Molly would spend $5,500 on having her house industrially cleaned. And the children would later...
That's sus.
It's super... Like, your husband just died, they're doing an investigation, and you're gonna have your house cleaned when they're still processing all this stuff? Sus.
Yeah.
Would never be me. Sorry. The children would later go on to corroborate Tom and Molly's story by saying that their dad was abusive towards Molly. 9 months later, after that though, Jack would retract his statement saying that Molly had told them both to lie to the police about the abuse. Police did believe that this was perhaps premeditated and not self-defense, but that wasn't until much later. Jason Corbett's last will, made in 2007, never altered even after marrying Molly, named his sister Tracy and her husband as legal guardians of his children. Molly retaliated by filing for custody of Jack and Sarah. When the Corbett family arrived in the U.S., they filed a legal challenge which prompted authorities to dismiss Molly's claims. They would later go back with Tracy immediately to Ireland, and on August 25th, 2015, Jason Corbett was laid to rest beside Mags at Castle Mungret Cemetery.
So, in the hours after his death, the police did do interviews of Molly and Tom. Tom claimed that he'd been staying at the Corbett house when he was awakened by the sound of fighting in the master bedroom. He then grabbed Jack's baseball bat and rushed to the master bedroom where he saw Jason strangling Molly. After a struggle between the two men, Molly hits Jason with a brick, which after Tom hits Jason with the baseball bat. But the funny thing is, Tom Martens is a retired FBI agent, so he should know how to de-escalate the situation. Tom also said, shockingly, that Jason's first wife died of mysterious circumstances, which we know that isn't true. She actually died from an asthma attack.
Yeah.
And Molly's interview corroborated this and said that Jason was a heavy drinker and that he was drunk when the incident happened. And so, obviously, a toxicology report was done, and it came back that his blood alcohol content was only 0.02%, and the legal limit is 0.08%. And they also found trazodone in his system, and Molly was taking the drug at the time. And there's a theory that she spiked him with it.
Yep.
An EMS responder described the scene as overkill and that when they went to examine Jason's head, his fingers went right through his skull. Molly also had no other injuries besides a cut behind her ear. She was also said to have been crying, but no tears came out. And Tom also had no visible injuries or defensive marks. And you would think that if it was really self-defense, you would see some marks on them too.
You would think, because that's usually how it goes. So, yeah, police found this very suspicious.
And at least on Molly's neck, because if he strangled her, then you would think that they would be seeing handprint.
Yeah, you would see physical marks on her neck of where he tried to strangle her. They just, if they don't appear, obviously, there's a reason for it, and it's because it didn't happen. There's always some sort of evidence is left behind when somebody tries to strangle you or when you try to fight and get away from somebody. Yeah. Thankfully, police came to their senses, didn't believe the self-defense, and after collecting all the evidence, decided to charge Tom and Molly Martens on January 5th, 2016 with second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. Both were placed on a bail bond of $200,000 each. July 2016, the Martens legal team filed a defense motion to exclude Jack Corbett's rebuttal interview from trial. June 2017, Tracy would testify, in addition to this, that once she brought Jack back to Ireland, the info that was given to the authorities was untrue. So Judge Lee, who was the judge of the trial, ruled the rebuttal interview to stay in and that the original statements that the kids gave were to be thrown out. August 9th, 2017, after less than 4 hours of deliberations, the jury would come back to find Tom and Molly guilty as shit because they were guilty as shit, boy. Both were sentenced to 20 to 25 years in prison, which I think is pretty fair for what happened.
Yeah.
But out of the ashes of fuckery, a twist in this case, of course, happens. March 12th, 2021, the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled by a 4-3 majority that Molly and Tom would get a new trial and that whatever was thrown out in the 2017 trial was to be included in this new trial, which I think is crazy. Because why would you... Why? October 30th, 2023... Molly and Tom both accepted plea bargains to charges of Class D manslaughter in return for the DA agreeing to drop the murder charges against them. So it never even technically went to trial ish. November 2023, Molly pled no contest to the reduced voluntary manslaughter charges while Tom pleaded guilty. Both were still sentenced to between 51 to 74 months prison, with them getting credit for time served. So all in all, they only stayed in prison for 7 more months because they had been in there for quite a bit of time. They were released on June 4th, 2024. Both were subjected to 1 year of supervision, and this was to be served in Tennessee. May 9th, 2025, a Netflix documentary called A Deadly American Marriage was released, and guess who was in it? Molly and Tom, along with everyone else we've talked about in this case, talking about what happened to Jason Corbett and how we'll never really truly know what happened, but
Yep.
we're pretty sure we know what happened. So, yeah.
And two Reddit comments. So the first one is by I am the second BR. The killing of Jason Corbett, self-defense or premeditated murder.
Mm-hmm.
And Renee fourth. Good God, is this even a question? So, premeditated murder. Why else would she have that brick in her bedroom? And her sleep drugs found in his system. Yes, he could have technically taken those, but dad and daughter kept saying, oh, he was drunk and was getting out of hand. He had the equivalent of one beer in his system. He told her he was going to take the kids and move back to Ireland. She couldn't handle it, so they killed him. Yeah, that is a very possible motive of why she would.
Very much so. Establishment number 5994. So the mother-in-law was apparently so concerned about violence in the home being committed against her daughter that she taught her grandchildren a safe word and left her number with them so they could call for help. But when violence is allegedly actually happening, she goes back to bed. Sure thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
History Hill. What really got me was how Jack used the phrase physically and verbally abusive multiple times in his initial interview. How anyone thought he hadn't been coached is beyond me. Furthermore, the recordings of Jason's abusive behavior confirmed to me that he was pretty clearly the victim of her abuse. He sounded like a man who was frustrated and beaten down, but it never sounded like he was ever verbally abusive to her. I haven't looked much into this case, but someone over on Netflix mentioned that the podcast about the case covers even more damning evidence that the documentary left out. Does anyone know what they're referencing? And somebody replied, I am the second BR, not sure which specific podcast they were referring to, but I like Big Mad True Crime.
Facts. Hold Your Mackerels says, I watched the Netflix doc and a 48 hours piece on this case, but haven't delved any further. Just based on those, my opinion is that Molly is very likely a true psychopath and very guilty. I'm not sure about her father, though, whether Molly duped him into covering for her or whether he's just as messed up as his daughter. We don't know, actually.
Yeah, we'll never know.
No, we'll never know, honestly. But you know what they say? The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. And he was an FBI agent. So,
Facts, yeah.
yeah, he knew a lot of
Oh,
things.
and speaking of that, there was they they now ruled it, which is a good thing. So there was an FBI raid at the wrong house. And so before you wouldn't be able to sue the FBI, now they ruled it that you can if they come to you at the wrong house.
Good, because, that kind of
Yeah.
seems to
I
happen
mean,
a
that can
lot.
be traumatizing. Yeah.
Especially if you have kids. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, it was a mom and she had like a 7-month-old baby. And she was hiding in the closet and they came at her
That's
gunpoint.
crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Couldn't be
They
me.
need to check the check the address and the street
Oh shit.
before.
You need to double check. You need to
Yeah.
like cross your T's and dot your I's, my guy, because you're gonna get
Yeah.
fired for that.
Ike_Jones. She was attached because she raised them for a while when they were young, so they got attached to her, which makes it all very sad for them lost both parents. I hate this case because so many DV cases are crazy men, and when the woman ends up dead, she definitely guilty, don't get me wrong. It's awful in all ways.
Yeah, here's the thing about dating somebody with kids. There's a line you have to draw at some point that you're not their mother, you're their stepmother. And if anything
Yeah.
happens between you as far as the relationship goes, you will no longer be their mother. That's the problem.
Yep.
People get attached way too easily.
Yep.
Yeah. It it never ends well.
Nope.
Nope. J_Lynn21. I am also curious to know how the kids didn't wake up when the incident went down. How close were the bedrooms? It had to have been a loud scene. A part of me wondered if they were also given sleeping meds. That's actually a really good point. Possibly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, if they were given sleep meds, then, oh,
That's even more fucked
they
up.
find that out, yeah, they could.
You'll never go
That'd
near
be
another
even
child.
more evidence, and that would um definitely get her locked up.
Again, for something completely different. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm.
Look further 2020. How could he not sign the adoption papers and hand over his kids to the psycho? Isn't it why he got married the first time and had kids to give them away? How dare he procrastinate and keep kids only under his name? 400K for the house, 80K for the furniture, 50K to help a trained killer get married, two beautiful kids for free. After all, what do we need you for, JC? Absolutely horrific. Can't stop feeling angry ever since I saw the documentary.
Hmm. Interesting take. I don't know if that's sarcasm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Deli Dave 7. She went to Ireland as an au pair to befriend kids for herself. Very possible. She probably wanted kids. Um,
Yeah,
and the fact that she had mental problems probably would have prevented that.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a reason why he didn't want her to have custody and he wanted to go back to Ireland.
Yeah, he saw all these different red flags popping up after it, and he's like, oh, what did I get myself into?
But he was unfortunately too late on his end for himself.
Yeah, he should have, like, pulled a move, dipped out in the middle of the night, left her there, and just went and
Yeah.
gone. Like, it could have been done, but he was just. The timing was just too crazy.
Yeah. You're right for the next.
Yeah. Duh.
So this one's by magic_badger_3986. A deadly American family. How I know 202. This supposed smoking gun of the audio recordings were complete nonsense. The recordings are all a situation in which Jason is clearly angry about something, and Molly, knowing the conversation is recorded, behaves like a quiet mouse who is being abused. It's also alarming that the DV expert that appeared in the doc tried to analyze these conversations without adding that obvious asterisk that the conversation is not going to be authentic when only one side knows the conversation is being recorded.
That is a pretty fair fact, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could, yeah. One person knows, and then it just gets torn a certain way. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. Lil Irish Red. Yo. I wish they would have dived deeper into the maid of honor being told that Molly was the godmother of these children and the crazy birth story. It could have been detailed better. Yeah, I wish they would have like gone more into detail about that in the documentary, But like the logistics of it is still pretty crazy that she claimed to have known Jason
Yeah,
before.
and she claimed that birth story, which is very crazy.
Like, what? How would you even know what that's up dude? What?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Master underscore document. The crime scene shows murder with malice, period. There's no need for two adults, Molly and her dad, to fear for their life with one unarmed man. All they had to do was call the police, scream for the mother to do so, and I feel like the mother would, since she apparently was scared for Molly and the children. She had code words set up and her number hidden. For an FBI agent, the father didn't really create a believable story. No defensive wounds for one to tell me there was no need hitting Jason that amount of times. That was overkill. One good hit with the bat and call 911. It was two against one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was too violent for it to just be defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I am who I am 76. I noticed that Molly's always spoke about the kids or the children. She rarely used their actual names. She didn't see them as people, but as possessions. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Some people do.
Yeah, they just see their kids as possessions and not people who are, their people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Intellect Seeker 434. I believe they had a toxic marriage. I think Molly was a manipulator. The fact she called herself their mother put that in their heads, took away the photos of the real mom, says everything that needs to be said. She was delusional. I think there was potential he strangled her, but I think he was emotionally abusing but I think she was emotionally abusing him and using his kids as tool. I think he just snapped as a victim, which sometimes you see in these kind of relationships. She pushed and pushed until she made him snap to try to make him look like the bad guy. Yeah, that could have definitely happened.
That actually does happen a lot of times. You know, they say men
Yeah,
are like really manipulative, but when it comes down to it, women are also very manipulative and
they can
men can
be.
be
Yeah,
victims too. And they
yep,
have the right to snap back just like women do.
yep.
Yeah. Take Me Into the Woods. Also, when they tried to tie Meg's death to him, and their argument was that she said, I don't want to die twice during her asthma attack. And that apparently is highly unusual and definitely means she was strangled before. Like, what? No, I would probably say the same thing after having an asthma attack, because that shit's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I say the same thing when I have an allergy attack.
Yeah, it gets kind of scary, and it's like, I don't want to die, dude. It's kind of real for a minute. Too real. Doesn't mean he strangled
Yeah,
her.
you ready for the last
Yes.
post?
Yes. The last post is by Roxy Matthews. Molly Martens is a psycho, a deadly American marriage. Massive babe. Why was the murder not caught on the recording devices? Had she turned them off ahead of the killing? Why was this never addressed by the producers? That is such a good question. She had that shit all over the
Yeah.
house and it didn't catch it. Where were they? Were they off? Conveniently off?
Should probably destroy the tapes.
Either that or she intentionally turned them off because she knew what was
Yeah.
gonna happen. Mm-mm.
BitLogical 254. Did anyone notice Tom described Mac's dad as a low, poor, educated man? It was a giveaway of what kind of people and family they are. Yeah, it's kind of terrible for them to talk about his dead wife's dad like that.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it's pretty fucked up. You have to think he was an
Yeah,
FBI
very
agent
disrespectful.
and she was a model. So, like, in their worlds, it's still very
Yeah.
disrespectful, but it just shows who they are.
He mid Fire 99. It's crazy how easy her and her father got away. It's mostly likely because he's an FBI agent and they pulled some strings.
Oh yeah, probably more than likely. I can
Yep.
I can say that. Girl from Mars. I work with victims of domestic violence, and she is not a victim. She is a liar and a manipulator and used coercive control to establish her own narrative in order to get those kids. Watching this documentary made me so mad. Her behavior is a disgrace to real victims. Yep, like we said, she probably had a lot as far as in play as to what happened. From
Yeah,
what it seems like,
probably.
she did not seem very mentally stable.
Nope.
She's very
She
bipolar.
stays wild. Movie, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. That's all I have to say.
Damn, that's crazy.
That is.
That's crazy. Tiffany. Wait, Tiffany? Yeah. That poor woman suffering through the horrific abuse of a man wanting to make sure his kids spend time with his family. I can only imagine. Frequent verbal and physical abuse, says a 10-year-old. Laughable. Yeah, it's not typically in their vocabulary, unless they're really smart. But you would think they would say, oh, they're being mean or talking bad.
Yep.
Yeah, not abuse.
Lonely Jacama 8487. Why didn't they stop beating him once he was on the ground? And Superfuzz underscore Big Muff because they needed him dead for her to get the kids.
And also his insurance policy, because it was like a $600,000
Yeah.
policy,
Yeah, they probably wanted that money.
which would have set them up for life. That's a lot
Yep.
of money. Wall Street is nothing. I bet she peed on her PJs because her psycho father knew they would check that. Yeah, you know, that's a point because working in the FBI, you would know a lot of shit. So maybe. Very possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, very possible.
Prison Tat. Just watch this. Whoa, the crazy train is derailed with this one. Jason, I like to sit down and have a family dinner with you and the kids tonight. Molly feeds the kids dinner while Jason is on the way home. Jason, why did you do that after I said I wanted us to have dinner together? Defensive attorneys playing the recorded conversation. Look at how abusive he is.
That's very true, actually. They have a point.
Yeah.
Like, man just wanted to have dinner with his family, and she was like, nah, let me get him all mad and shit, make him the bad guy. What a mastermind of a person. Crazy.
Razorbacks 3219. There are so many lies from Tom and Molly. Jason was a trained MMA fighter and boxer. Jason was drunk.
Oh,
He
yeah.
only had 0.02 blood alcohol content. Tom was the one who hit Jason with the bat when there are injuries in the back of his head. Tom being told by Mag's dad that he thinks Jason killed Mags. Molly lying about giving birth to Sarah. Molly lying about being friends with Mags. Lying about why they went to North Carolina. I'm sure there's others I can't think about.
Facts. Drop the mic.
Yeah.
Jules 1313138 What a long name. I'm just glad she didn't get the kids. I'm also glad. They needed to be with their actual family. They deserve that
Yeah.
after what they went through. So.
I think that's good for the comments.
Yeah. Duh. All I have to say is this case is tricky and what? All I have to say is this case is tricky and somebody's either a liar who got off very easily or a victim who unjustly served time. Honestly, I don't care. Somebody is a fucking mastermind liar here. I don't care who it is. But we'll never know the truth because we don't have Jason's side because he's fucking dead, bitch. He's dead.
Yep.
He's like, yeah. Case closed. Thank you for listening to another episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More. Tune in next week for another exciting episode or even a gaming video. We post different things all the time. Also, watch out for the crazy men or women. You might find yourself dead before you're 40.